Hello, welcome to Colonel O'Truth's Miniature Issues. In this episode, I'm building a flying vessel complete with balloons. Keep watching and you'll see that these plastic eggs didn't make the final cut. In the last episode I showed you the sky dock, from where this vessel will set out on its epic journeys. This is the final part of a fantasy city that has taken me 2 years to build. Welcome to Undercrag City. So back to those plastic eggs. When I told you in the last episode that I was building a flying vessel, I had no idea what it was going to look like. So I raided my bits boxes, found these plastic eggs, and thought they'd be a good place to start. They're sort of balloony and sort of the right size if you put 3 of them together. Anyway, they got me started. If you watched the last episode, you'll know that the plan was to attach this to the skydock using magnets. There's already a magnet built into the skydock, and I'm going to build one into this vessel. This means everything has to be very light. I'm using very thin card and balsa wood. So I'm starting by plotting out the pieces to make the rough vessel shape. I had drawn a number of concept sketches, all sorts of ships and zeppelins and things like that, but they all seemed to me to be a bit predictable. They've been done to death. I've seen versions of those things 1,000 times in fantasy. I wanted to do something a bit different. I'm also making things a little bit easier by allowing myself to work with angles rather than curves. Curves take so much longer to work with. And it's a good thing I made this decision. As I'm talking to you, only 5 hours since finishing the model, and 3 hours before this episode is due to go out. That said, here are some curves. The idea is to have a ship-like structure suspended from balloons, with an enclosed cabin on the deck. I'm going to construct the cabin in such a way that I don't have to bend balsa wood the wrong way. I'm marking a center line along the deck to correspond with the center line in the cabin. Everything's going to need to line up nicely. This oval piece will form the roof of the cabin. I've also decided that I want the deck itself to be more regular, less pointy at the front. And now it's time to score in the planking. Like most of this project, I've chosen 2mm spacings. And just draw them in with a pencil. Now to think about my magnet. It needs to be very close to the side of the vessel so that it gets good contact with the dock. I'm gradually putting together the structure using strips of balsa wood. The idea being that the end of the dock actually slots into a space on the side of the vessel. More planking. And I'll use this to form the sides. I'm going for straight sides, nice and simple, as this doesn't need to go on water. I'm packing out the space where the magnet will go so that it sits at the right height, and boxing it in so it doesn't move. Blob of PVA, and in go 2 magnets. Let's see. Maybe not. That's better. A knife blade. Let's try all that again. So I cut out a section of the planking, and I'm going to create a gangway to overlap the top of the dock. It means I can also bring my magnet slightly further forward. And there's the blade. It's nice and thin and steel. It's a little bit difficult using the trusty pointy stick today. It's made of steel as well. There we go. Let's close all of that in. And try again. Much better. So now we can keep building. As I demonstrated in the last video, this whole vehicle needs to weigh less than 80 grams. And there's the matter of balance as well. Once again, this card is very thin, not much thicker than paper. I'm more or less making this up as I go. And I've decided my cabin should have straight sides. Let's try and keep life a little simple. As well as the top deck, I have a template for the shape of the cabin. But in the end, I didn't use that. So I'm planning the cabin in the same way as I plan most of my buildings. I've got my heights, I've got lines for my windows and doors. And I'm building up the structure a bit at a time. The curved front and back are being made with strips that can be flexed. And I'll add in extra little pieces until the whole thing is complete. Windows all the way around the front. Gently bending the ends so that they'll take the form I need without creasing. Now some much thicker card to support the shape. And And there we go, there's my rough shape ready. I'm going to add some details to the rest of the vessel now that the glue is dry. I'm taking this bit by bit approach because I don't really know what this is going to look like in the end. Each piece I add seems to inform a new idea. One characteristic I do want is the inclusion of some panels to echo the timber frame buildings of the city. I don't want this to be entirely covered with planks. Covering all my joins. Starting to take on some character now. Let's add a pointy bit, some basswood, stronger than balsa, and a piece of matchstick. And some deep boards around the deck. Now the same treatment for the cabin. I'm working mostly with verticals so that it's easy to follow the curves of the vehicle. But I'm leaving space for some more panels. Space for my door, and the windows are taking shape. It's probably a good idea to have a handrail as well. These are little pieces of basswood. And some longer pieces of basswood. Details like this can be easily damaged, and balsa is just too soft. More pieces of matchstick. I'm going to need something to attach the rigging to. I'm keeping it relatively simple. Quickly check out a plastic egg for size. And some runners, so that this thing can actually land without toppling over. I'll just fill in the spaces around that blade as well, make it a nice flat surface. A toothpick. And we've got a nice pointy bit at the front of the vessel. Looking pretty good. I need a trapdoor. I'll cut out a square, turn it through 90 degrees and put it back in again. Just reinforce it from behind. Tiny strips of basswood. And that looks pretty good. Now for some funnels, starting with little washers. I need a means for the gas or hot air or whatever to get from the cabin into the balloons. These are little pieces of plastic rod, 2 different diameters, a wider cuff around a taller, narrower piece, and I'll mount those on the washers with some super glue. Time for an undercoat. Light grey everywhere. That's looking good, and I need to give some thought to the balloons. I found some Christmas decorations that look like a better fit than the eggs. Not sure how they'll take paint, but we'll give them a go. First off, the undercoat's dry. So as usual, I'm coating the whole model with brown ink. And I'll follow that when it's dry, with some pale yellow dry brushing, and then some white. When this vessel is finished, it will mark the end of the Undercrag project. Dirth and Tenneth will board the vessel, and we'll leave Undercrag City. We'll be flying eastwards to Velitsia, the city of the artisan princes, which is where Tenneth was born. We may see some interesting sights along the way. If you're new to this channel, or you haven't subscribed already, please do. Please remember to hit the like button, and maybe share this video. And feel free to ask questions and leave comments, as I answer every single one, and I really like hearing from you. Here you can see I'm going over the finished dry brushing with more brown ink. This gives me my nice timber effect. I'm going to leave the handrail and some of the other bits to be finished in a nice blue, just to break up all the brown. This is a particularly nice blue ink. I haven't had many opportunities to use it on this project. In the last few weeks, I've also heard from a lot of people who are either new to the channel or hadn't commented before. So welcome all of you. It's lovely to hear from you, and I hope you keep in touch. Undercrag City and the Overcrag are populated by some very curious people. There are cave dwellers, cliff dwellers, an underground castle, a subterranean religious order that follows a dragon, and the somewhat insane craggers, who almost live upside down. The people of the Overcrag live right at the edge of the precipice, looking down on Undercrag City from a great height. And yet all of those people consider Dirth and Tenneth eccentric. Who in their right mind would want to fly? I've added some metal banding, just to tie everything in nicely. Now I'm frosting some very, very thin acetate sheet with sandpaper. This is so I can add windows and obscure the emptiness of the inside of my cardboard cabin. The windows went in nice and easily, and I can put on my roof. Tiny pieces of cardboard to detail my trapdoor. Another metal band hiding the join between the wall and the roof. And when I'm ready, let's add that to the deck. All the way through this process, I was wondering what to do at the rear of the vessel, maybe an engine or a propeller or something. Instead, I've opted for a great big sail to act as a rudder. There's been a lot of plotting things out on this project, which is unusual for me. I've used toothpicks to create a structure. I'm strengthening the joins with little bits of card that will become metal brackets. And that's all been stained with brown ink. I didn't like the spikiness of the points, so I've squared everything off, and that's looking better. Dry brushed just like the rest of the ship and stained with that nice blue. I'm finishing off the bottom of the upright with a very thin strip of paper that I'll wind around a couple of times. And this will be painted to look like metal too. So let's think about a sail. This is just thick paper from my sketchbook. It's going to take a couple of tries, but we're slowly getting there. I've decided to work with this while it's attached to the model. This is because I want some tiny brackets that would be very hard to put in place once the sail is in. Now I'm shaving off the edge of the sail in a sort of wiggly way, so it doesn't look too neat and tidy. And I'm ready to attach it. And now I'll soak it with water from my paintbrush cup so that the sail bows. I'll let that dry thoroughly. Let's have another look at those balloons. They need some support, and I need some way of getting the hot air or gas from the funnels to the balloon. So I've got a bass guitar string, and I'm going to anchor it into the decorations by using a tube. Figuring out where the balloon is going to sit. There's been more planning, measuring and mathematics in this model than anything I've built in this entire project. This string's so thick, it'll hold its shape. And it'll hold the weight of the balloon. Let's see. Not sure about that at all. In fact, Mrs. O'Truth suggested it was designed by Dr. Seuss. But I'm heading in the right direction. I'll colour the sail while I think about it. You can see the ink didn't take where there's glue, so I'm going to paint the sail grey first, and then try again. Much better. We'll keep soldering on with the guitar string. I've spray undercoated the balloons and I'm adding dark blue. I'll build up on this. Some pale highlighting on the sail. I need to break up the colour so it's not all one tone. I'm going over that again with my light blue, which is translucent, and some of the highlighting will come through. Dry brushing the balloons. I was making this up as I go, but they very quickly started to look quite good. Adding some white. Colouring in my masts again. I'm going to wash the balloons with the same light blue as I've used elsewhere on the vessel. I did think about using a much brighter, more colourful design, but these just look so nice in the blue I felt it wasn't necessary. More maths and even a calculator. Time to think about the rigging. At this point I'm wondering if I can do away with the guitar string and the rigging itself will support the balloons. One of the problems I discounted quite early was that if I used wire in a similar way to elsewhere in the city, it wasn't going to sit perfectly against the balloon. I couldn't get a perfect curve. So it's going to have to be string. I've made a test piece coated with superglue, and it seems quite strong. I've also figured out how to splice one rope through another. My string's too thick, so I'm splitting it in half, 4 strands per rope. I'll twist the ends, give them a little blob of superglue, the cheapest stuff possible. Find my center point. Using a pin, pull them apart, and post the next rope through. When my pencil marks line up, a little blob of superglue. And I'll gradually build up the rigging. For the final piece, I'm going to try to attach it end to end, which inevitably doesn't really work. I've got some scratches on my balloon too, where I've been moving things around and trying things out. That's just part of the process. There'll be some touching up to do. I completely forgot that I had more of these decorations I could be working with without damaging my painted one. But I got there in the end. Finally coating my strings with superglue, and they sit very nicely. But will they be strong enough? Well, no, it turned out. So it's back to the guitar string. And maybe just a rope for the little balloon at the front. covering my ropes with brown ink, which is much easier with the superglue than if they were just string. I'm putting my main balloon in place. I've got loops at the end of the ropes and wrapping a single strand around them just to finish them off nicely. Then each one slots around my matchstick. They're not sitting perfectly straight. Maybe the balloon's bobbing about. And I've added the smaller one using a smaller piece of guitar string. Now all that remains is a bit of painting. Pick out all of my ropes, trying not to get brown ink on the balloons. And I'm highlighting the ropes too, just to break up all of that monotone brown. And there we are. The Bluebird, the vessel of dearth and henneth. But will it stay in place? Yes, just. I'm honestly, pleasantly surprised. And so the Bluebird is complete, and this entire project is complete. Very soon, Dearth and Tenneth will set sail to the east, and we'll go with them. In the meantime, in the next few weeks, Mrs. O'Truth and I will be making some videos to address some of your observations and comments over the last 2 years, and then we'll be going to Valizia. I hope you've enjoyed the Undercrag project. Thank you for following us this far, and Mrs. O'Truth and I very much hope to see you next time. Goodbye for now.